Call to order the Town of Old Saybrook Zoning Commission regular and hybrid meeting of Monday, April 17th, 2023, 7 p.m. in Town Hall First Floor Conference Room at 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook. Seated tonight, it's me, Bob Friedman, Chairman, Mark Caldarella, Vice Chairman, Mark Delmonico, regular commission, Jerry Lewis, regular commission member and secretary, and regular commission members, Mark Delmonico and Anne Marie Thorson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regular members are all present. We also have alternates, John Henry and Sandy DeCenzo present this evening, and Justin is not appearing tonight. We also have our clerk, Joanne Galley, and our zoning enforcement officer, and 2, 4, 6, 8 people in the room in the audience and no additional attendees online. Next on the agenda is the regular business minutes of 2 meetings. The earlier being Monday, March 27th, 2023, which was a special meeting with a workshop to discuss drive-through windows as accessory use for financial institutions, pharmacies, and indoor restaurants and or other food and beverage establishments. Are there any additions and corrections to the minutes of March 27th?
I didn't have any.
No, none appearing. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved. So moved.
Oh, so Jerry Lewis makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mark Delmonico seconds the motion to approve the minutes of March 27th. Any discussion, all in favor of approving March 27th minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 12500, motion carries. Next is the minutes of April 3rd, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of April 3rd?
No.
Nothing else. Great job. Great job as usual, Joanne. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, April 3rd, 2023, as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Jerry Lewis. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the April 3rd, 2023 minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 500. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the correspondence. We have any correspondence other than the next agenda item?
No.
No. Next up is Roman numeral 4 discussion, Penny Lane Pub, addition of outside music on back patio at 150 Main Street, map 37, lot 25 in the business B1 district. We have anyone here to explain from Penny Lane Pub anything in addition to the
It's just Dan.
yeah, please step up closer to the table so the mic can pick you up. I mean, if you would.
Anywhere, sort of in this area.
Identify yourself for the
Yep.
record and.
Hello, Alex Folks from Penny Lane Pub. Know many of you. So I obviously just come myself to kind of more of a discussion on this, and we always want to be good stewards, of the town, and we feel like we're an impactful part of the town, and want to take our responsibilities seriously. We have had live music. I've spoken with Kim and other neighbors in the area, and always try to kind of feel out. And when we originally did in 2020 is when we put the patio in the back, talked with neighbors and had support on it. And I do know that I've heard even some support on this from the neighbors, and asked if they wanted us to come, and I said no. And but we have spoken with a number of them, and do have support directly kind of on the adjacent street. I think really the discussion and question is whether we're allowed to have live music outside. We legally can have live music on our property. We pay a lot of money for that, right? There's different groups that authorize you to cover music, and that's numbers in the thousands of dollars a year. On top of that, we employ local musicians at somewhere in the range of $20,000 per year. And, you know, the investment we've made in the patio itself has been in the tens of thousands per year. So it's not, you know, a small undertaking for us. We take it seriously. It's, you know, I think it's sort of a wash for kind of business. I think it brings in business, and the overwhelming feedback we've had on the music out there has been really incredibly positive, which is why we've kept it up out there. Again, I think it's an investment that at best is sort of a wash business wise, but I think it's good for the town. This town is growing. This town is becoming more of a destination. And I think it's a little sort of oasis outside, you know, right outside of Main Street. That's not right on the water, but if you're not gonna be right on the water, it's sort of tucked away. I understand how that affects the Dudley Ave and the other kind of surrounding businesses. It is right on Main Street. We've gone through efforts to, we have a garden out there to create sort of a filter for the music. We're changing up the way that if we have speakers, we don't always, but if we do, we face it now towards Main Street as opposed to what we were doing towards the sort of residential area. You know, we're making efforts to really try to make it a win-win situation. It's only on weekends. It's only from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I talked with Kim, you know, a few times, and I always go out of my way, and maybe she'll say otherwise, I don't know, but to hear, you know, complaints and try to mitigate them and rectify them. And I'm very happy to do that still, to adjust. Again, it's Friday and Saturday nights that we're talking about from about May to September, when the weather is good, from about 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We tell them to keep it down. We have some musicians who play all acoustically. So I don't know if that's my pitch. That's sort of the kind of framework for how I see it. I don't, you know, I've been to a few of these. I don't quite know if there's anything else you want from me. I'm happy to kind of talk more or less. We appreciate it, and thank you for kind of hearing me out on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You said that you've already had live music outside. That was presumably permitted under the governor's executive orders having to do with outdoor seating for restaurants during the COVID period, let's call it. And the governor's bringing that to an end. And on May 1st, the state statute allows for outdoor seating to continue. But the May 1st change from the state perspective does not include music. The governor's executive order also permitted music for the outdoor restaurant seating for a specified time limit. And I think it included mention that it was acoustic only, no amplification. That was part of the executive order. So that was allowed then, but in the Old Saybrook zoning regulations, it's structured differently. In section 6, it has to further assist in the interpretation of permitted uses, certain uses are listed as prohibited in the district, even though the listing of uses prohibited is not intended to be exhaustive. Any use not specified as permitted in the district is prohibited. So we're looking at a use that's outdoor entertainment, if you will. It's not specifically permitted in the B1 business district where Penny Lane Pub is. And in order for it to be permitted, in my opinion, a change in the zoning text would have to support that. But that's just one approach. Since the governor already saw fit to allow outdoor music, it appears that you could use that as a precedent. But what you said here is that they're positioning a speakers facing toward the back of the building. And so that would imply to me that there's amplification going on. And that was not permitted under the governor's executive orders. And so why does outdoor music, have to be anything other than acoustic? Why are there speakers involved?
I think it's mostly preference of the musicians, but honestly, I'd be happy to tell them we just don't do amplification out there. That wouldn't, for me, be really a non-starter, I guess, for that.
Right, the concern with, amplification or outdoor music in general has to do with, Section 61 design standards, in which it says, the townwide design standard section 61.3. Is noise. No noise will be transmitted outside the lot where it originates when noise has a decibel level, octave band intermittence, or beat frequency that endangers public health or safety or impairs the value or reasonable use of any other lot. And so the concern is that a place that has outdoor music or noise, if you will, could keep all of the sound on their own lot. Because if it drifts across the line, then it becomes a matter of impairing the enjoyment of somebody else's property. And so that's how zoning regulations look at it.
Can I ask about the music on the green in the summer? And is there, a special carve out for that, or is that
Which,
the music on the green that the town does, right?
yes. You're
Yeah.
right. That's an
So
example of where.
Yay.
Yeah, you can work that out.
Because other towns in Connecticut allow for their municipality to be exempt from their zoning regulations. And in that case, that would all be, they're allowed to do it because they're exempt. In Old Saybrook, the town is not exempt from its own zoning regulations. We believe the town leads by example, not by exemption, but the town does have concerts on the green. They're not, they're weekly at best, at most. And once a week is one of those things where if the town does it, how is the zoning commission gonna tell the Parks and Rec Commission and or selectmen that they're not gonna do that?
Well, yeah, and I think it's a similar capacity to what, we're saying once a week and, I'm saying, twice a week, but for probably less hours in, this sort of same time frame of the season.
Yes, a zoning enforcement officer.
Yes.
We'll come back to that. Who's gonna enforce it if it goes louder or longer outside the hours?
Oh, yeah. Oh, who's gonna? We have a quiet town, so we are not a late night place. There's honestly no need. It's 5 to 8, and then once in a while in the summer, it will go a little past that. I'm happy to enforce that when there's, when both sides are under the understanding. I don't think that existed before, which is, part of the problem. But it's just, we're not a late night place, we're not a late night town, as everybody knows. So it would make no sense for us to have music until 10 p.m. Or 9 p.m. even.
Did I preempt your question? Sorry.
No, so I was just gonna give a little background. So part of the reason we're here is that the COVID seating changed a lot of businesses in outdoor, and I know Alex and Pennyland was one of the first businesses that came in for their full permit, and a lot of our for permanent outdoor. But one of the things that we really haven't discussed, but it has happened, as Alex pointed out, is we have had restaurants with outdoor seating. And I'm gonna pick on closed restaurants, the back porch on Ferry Road with residential right across the street had it. There was, I remember at one point, Tequila's had a little mariachi band outside. So it's a little unclear as to how this fits. It's not specifically spelled out in the outdoor seating permit or in the special exception permit. It does say that there's music, but it's, in some cases, it's been implied that it's always indoors, but there have been some incidences like the music on the green in other areas that are near residential areas where music has occurred and continues in certain spots to occur. So the reason we're here today is I did receive a complaint from one neighbor who I believe is here about that, is how are we gonna proceed with outdoor music? Because it's a little bit of a gray area. We've had it, it's been there. It's not clear with the zoning regulations. It's happened in many cases without complaint. So how do you want to handle it in that circumstance, Alex? And I had a discussion. I said, the best thing is when we go to the zoning commission and see how this is not going to be your first request.
Well, I'd like to hear from the audience.
Oh, yeah. And you got
This is the most people we've seen in
we
a
got 7 more
while.
people.
I'll sit down unless you want to stay up there.
If someone has a question, we might ask you through us, but.
Okay.
Right. All right, anyone have
Or
any
comment.
comments in favor of or in opposition to outdoor music? In this case, it's specifically Penny Lane Pub, because that's our discussion tonight. If it was for regulations, then it would be for a lot more than just one property. In this case, anyone have any comments?
I think we all do.
Okay, well, raise your hand and come on up.
Please identify yourself.
I'll stand up anyways. The name's Adam Seafield, 20 Dudley Avenue, literally right on top. You can't get any more on top of that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, can you just spell your last name for me?
CZEPIEL.
Thank you.
Anyways, he's been doing the music now for the last few years. Haven't had personally too many complaints, as long as it's, all of this boils down to one thing, it's a quality of life issue. I do have several questions if this is granted. Is this gonna be part of the restaurant? So when he sells, next person coming in, maybe a dance club or something like that, which is my big concern. Because I personally will not put up the midnight dancing and Dancing with the Stars out there. I won't deal with that. I personally have had no issue with that. My wife's never really had an issue with that. But as long as they have it, keep it within defined times, which they've been pretty good on so far, but it just change of venue and what is enforcement of what's too loud, what's not too loud. And, you know, the thing, because he's obviously doing this weekends, he said so, and I just want some assurances that, you know, is this part of the restaurant, like a liquor license that can be passed on and things, is that, you know, a year from now, if the restaurant is indeed sold, I'll repeat myself again, that, you know, sold to a dance club. Now what do we do? And so, not a legal expert, but the town has to come out with in writing assurances for us, and I probably can speak for the rest of the neighbors too, who want assurances of what will happen and potentially could happen. So, I'll sit down and pass it on the torch to someone else.
I appreciate your understanding of the way the regulations go with the land, with the property,
Yes,
not with the owner or the operator.
correct.
That's an important understanding that many people don't grasp. They think, he's a nice guy, we should let him do it. And then times change and you have a not nice guy and it's not the same anymore. So thanks for clearing that up. All right, so that's part of the land use issue is.
Okay, so-
It goes here.
Chris wants.
Just one comment is that Penny Lane Pub is permitted as an indoor restaurant. It's not permitted as a dance club. So if it went from an indoor restaurant to a dance club, they'd have to come to this commission for a change in use. It would change the seating. It would probably change the whole use and the atmosphere. So it's not as though a restaurant can just turn into a dance club. It would be a different
Or
use.
even the sale of the property, sale of everything else.
So they'd have to come in and apply for a new permit if they went for a dance club.
Well, even if it just becomes another restaurant, but this one, like you said, maybe it's a Mexican restaurant, maybe now we've got mariachi music out in the
Well, I
backyard.
mean, we can't regulate the type of music, but we
You know,
can
right,
regulate,
can't, and
we
that's
can
part of
regulate
the
the hours and the duration. So the Penny Lane Pub has a statement of use with its hours. It has a permit for indoor entertainment. So this is, and it has a permit for outdoor seating, and that's part of the discussion tonight. You know, he's not proposing to make it into a dance club. So how does this fit? And that's why I've asked Alex to come here tonight just to have this discussion, because I think as a commission for this property and others, we may see more of that now that the COVID seating orders may end.
In the case of a venue, maybe Penny Lane Pub, occasionally they're rented out for private parties. And if there were a private party and they had use of the patio on the outdoor seating area and had music, then it ostensibly could include the wedding reception or birthday parties and other things like that if there are events that are held there. And that's a little different flavor from just a restaurant with patrons seated outdoors with music. And mariachi band is but one example, and there's plenty of different kinds of music that people like and don't like.
I was not making any kind of a statement with that, but you had just said mariachi.
Oh, yeah, no, if we all like the same music, there'd only be one song, right? I can envision a steel drum band would be nice under certain circumstances, but those noises carry a great distance, and I don't think they stop at the property line and just,
The other sort of thought I have on this is, we've always had speakers outside in our patio. What is the difference between having speakers playing at a decibel level that's higher, lower, all the time, as opposed to, you know, musicians that are playing out there? You know, what's the difference, and, you know, and how is that enforced? Obviously, there's a lot of gray area with the decibel and, you know, where it travels. But we hadn't, since I bought it before, as long as it's been Penny Lane Pub, there have been speakers outside on the patio.
right. Well, you brought it up, but in your purpose, the applicant is proposing to have live music outside. Live music, to me, means live performance, real time. Speakers alone means it's recorded music, or there is a DJ doing something. That's not the same as live performance music. And so we have to have some kind of a descriptor to establish what it is and what it is not going to be allowed.
Sure.
Right?
I think I'm maybe arguing a little more the spirit of it, whereas it's, yes, understood difference live music to recorded. You know, if I have loud music playing, which we don't, you know, we're very cautious of not playing too loudly, I can still achieve that and annoy the neighbors at a higher level with recorded music on speakers, if we wanted to, you know. So for me, the spirit of it is, I don't see like a huge difference in that.
So we have more than 40. Yeah, last time I counted, we had 43 restaurants in Old Saybrook where you could sit down and eat something. I didn't count DQ, and I didn't count one other place, but we were more than 40. And so our concern from a land use perspective and regulations across the town, we have to meet the uniformity clause where you can't treat different businesses differently for the most part. Penny Lane Pub is in the B1 district, which is essentially Main Street and around the corner at Elm Street to Madison Coffee Roasters. For some reason, that's also B1. But that's a small district. And if it was allowed in the B1 district, it would also be allowed at James Pharmacy, which has residential properties closer to it than you do. You have the Dudley Avenue, yeah, right there. James Pharmacy has more residential, right? It's in a residential district, come to think of it. But they would want to be part of that as well. So,
Well, the difference is James's Pharmacy is not, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use with variances.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not a restaurant, so that's kind of a bad example.
Technically, they're in a residential district where they shouldn't be anyway, but, all right, so the other B1 restaurant. And the Essex would be one of those, and there's residential property on Sherwood Terrace behind it. And then,
Fiore's,
yep, right, so,
Nori. I mean,
There-
you've got
there
the
are-
residences on Sheffield Street.
and so from land
Yeah.
use, if you allow it in one, you're gonna have to allow it in the others. Maybe not all the restaurants in the B4 district, or the restaurants in B3, like Luigi's and Saigon City and Little Pub, and things like, maybe they get regulated differently. But all of the other outdoor seating areas for restaurants would all, that want to have outdoor music would have to be treated uniform. So that's our issue. With regard to someone other than you who might not police it and keep it reasonable and according to the intent of the regulations. If they're running past 8 o'clock, past 9 o'clock, and it's too loud, what happens then? A zoning enforcement officer works enough hours a week that she's not adding more hours to go out and to try to stop the loud music at a place that's not compliant. And if the police get called, that's not high on their list of things that the police want to be doing. The experience that we have in Old Saybrook from the zoning commission was quite a few years ago now, but those who've been around for a while. We call Island Cove Marina as an island which they wanted to put up a tent and have events there.
Good time, yeah.
And it was a complicated channel of things to have your event there, but they were wedding receptions and they ran long. They ran past 9 p.m. and the music was loud and the neighbors up on 4th Avenue were disturbed by the noise and called the police. And the town noise ordinance is in effect from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So if the music is continuing past the 9 o'clock limit, the police aren't really empowered to enforce the town noise ordinance because it's not yet 10. And the zoning enforcement officer is not on duty between 9 and 10. And so they just took advantage of it and the people nearby suffered because they had a bad neighbor. Or they had people who had one-time events in their life and just went and made a lot of noise and then went away and they don't care. So that's the kind of experience that we had in the past. And we had limits on that and we put a stop to it because the neighbors were not happy. And so could we do something like that in this case? So we have the experiment and you are allowed to do it for a certain number of evenings in a certain calendar year. And if the complaints come in, then you don't get to do it again next year.
So you're talking about a seasonal music
We were,
permit just to test it out. That's
yeah,
what you're thinking.
we were trying to streamline the outdoor seating for restaurants. It was very successful. The expansion by the state in order to support restaurants in the COVID period helped restaurants get through. And that's all good. And we have a lot, have 20, how many, 27?
Quite a few.
We had lots of outdoor seating. And we, as a commission, reviewed it annually. And it became an administrative exercise that was getting to be, why are we doing this every year if it's not a problem and it keeps going? You do it because if there is a problem, you have to stop it. So we were moving in the direction of making the outdoor seating something that was as of right, you could keep doing it. And now if we have to put music, we're gonna go with outdoor seating, you can keep doing year after year without the annual renewal,
No.
but outdoor mute, well.
Oh, no, we're still doing the annual renewals. But what would happen is for the outdoor seating, I think there was 60 or 80 restaurants. We just did it at our last
We
meeting.
did it, yeah.
rather than have and wait for the replies because it would get stuck in a pile of mail. We've asked businesses over the past few years just to report changes. And if we've seen something that's become an issue, then we've gone through and addressed it.
So at this point, it seems that that would be something for the commission to consider, to have limited outdoor music on a temporary permitted basis. And if there are problems, then it's not renewed. Does that sound like a?
So does that mean that the residents would have to put up with it until the renewal time,
During-
if there was a problem?
During the experimental period, the residents on Fourth Avenue were not happy, and it's over. It doesn't, there is no more. Yeah, that's a
Well,
concern.
that was, I mean, Island Cove Marina was a very complicated
Yeah, and it was
situation. It
years
was
ago, was
for
that?
a wedding venue.
Yeah,
I went to more
Completely
weddings with
different.
the owner of Island Cove Marina with the noise meter back in the day. And I don't want to go to every outdoor restaurant. Thank you for outdoor music when I don't need to. But I mean, you could make it a minor modification to a special exception permit. Try it for a short timeline and make it very specific. No amplified music. No drums or I mean, however, something, acoustic only. It's obviously up to the commission, their tolerances and what the applicant is gonna propose.
Well, I'd like to hear from some of the other folks,
Hi.
what their experiences are.
My name is Beth Ann Slattery, and I live right across from Adams CPO at 25 Dublin. And the reason we moved to the neighborhood was because it's such a beautiful neighborhood. And everyone that comes to see me from where I used to live up on the Andover Lake, they say, we can't believe how quiet it is. And I'm the first house on the left behind the Essex Golf Shop. I said, yeah, isn't it? But when the music starts playing and we have the windows shut and the TV on, we cannot hear the TV. The sound comes because that's how loud some of these bands are. And it plays, past 8 o'clock. Alex has never confronted or asked us how we felt about it. He said he's talked to other residents on, I think the only people he's talked to is probably Kim and
Because I complain.
Adam, because, yeah, Kim complains. But, I just think changing it from Penny Lane Pub, which is a wonderful restaurant, that they have indoor music.
We don't have indoor music.
But you could.
No,
You used to.
used to,
You don't have it anymore?
because people weren't comfortable with music during COVID and it's close quarters.
That's somewhat COVID related. Restaurants can have music indoors. Their operation of their restaurant inside the walls, in the zoning regulations, there's nothing that would that prohibit them from having indoor music. That's their choice.
Okay.
But when it goes outdoors, it's not the same thing. And I think even the governor's order and the lack of outdoor music in the May 1st statute is a recognition that outdoor music is different. And so in one other restaurant that was approved but not yet constructed, we discussed the outdoor music on the patio, and we said that they could have acoustic outdoor music, but no amplification.
Well, to be honest with you, if you want to go out to eat, sitting down with your husband or your partner and not be able to talk, and that's what I'm talking about. That's how loud the music is over everything. I mean, for my windows are brand new. We just put new thermal pane windows in, and the sound just still comes through. Well, we got an 89-year-old woman here who's lived here for 83 years. And she can hear it through her bedroom window, keeps her up. Kim goes to work every day. I'm semi-retired. I teach swimming at the Y, but that's not why we moved to Saybrook. We moved there because the neighborhood is one unique place to live. And we love it there, and I really would like to see the music stopped. Let people enjoy their dinners. It is beautiful back there. But I think the music is not necessary.
Anyone else?
I'll jump on it at this point. Then everything that Beth said, I completely agree with.
I'm sorry, can I have your
I'm Kim
name?
McEwen. I'll spell it for you. It's MC capital EWEN.
And your first name was?
Kim.
Thank you.
It's nice to finally see you.
Nice to meet you. I know we've been talking and emailing.
Yes, I'm a.
Are you also on Dudley?
I live 32 Dudley Avenue, and, to say that it's been a long 3 years would be an understatement. The volume of music coming from the back of Penny Lane Pub has been ungodly. I sit in my house with my windows closed and my doors shut and my windows rattle. And it's just not necessary. It's a small space. Acoustic music would have sufficed, and I have suggested that to Alex, that we try, please, can't we try sticking with acoustic music? And we get it occasionally, but 9 times out of 10, it's the bands, and all you hear is boom, 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 for hours on end. And, you know, after 3 hours of listening to that, my anxiety level is so high and my blood pressure is so high that it takes hours for me to settle down again. I'm starting to really have trouble sleeping as a result of this. I kid you not. And you think, oh, it's just a couple of days and it's just for the summer, but this is every single weekend, 4 months of the year. In fact, it's been probably closer to 5 months in some cases, because if the weather stays good well into October, you know, nothing has stopped this. It kind of keeps on going. And there's really not anybody monitoring the noise there. You know, I go over and I track Alex down in the parking lot when I see his truck there.
I don't
But-
drive a truck.
Well, there's a black Ram and then there's another vehicle. That's what I usually look for. But, you know, when I go over, it's usually a waitress that's the best thing I can catch, or a manager. You know, and maybe they turn the music down that night, but the next night it's right back up again. You know, and so it boils down to who's gonna monitor this? You know, and it's uncomfortable and unpleasant to have to drag myself up to the restroom and complain. No one wants to do that. And I don't want to be the noise police forever. You
Ask you a
know,
question.
sure.
You said that something about the acoustic once in a while. Is the acoustic music purely acoustic?
You know, if you've got like a little girl with a guitar, we don't hear that so much. And I'd be willing to give that a solid whirl. I'm not trying to be unreasonable here. If Alex would commit to none of this bass stuff that's gonna rattle my windows, I don't know that I'd object to that, you know, but the problem is that, you know, this has been an ongoing problem, and the acoustic music has been in the vast minority of the musical offerings back there. And I can't imagine what it's gonna do to my property values. I mean, who's gonna buy a house with banging music in the backyard? You know, that matters for something too. I'm a single woman. My home is my investment. So my preference would be no music, because I don't want to be a music police. But if we have to try to compromise on something, I'm not sure that I would lose my mind over if we could try just acoustic music and see how that goes, because the bass and the volume are both a problem.
Section 61, performance, maintenance, and operations of the existing regulation. In section 61.0, it says, the purpose of performance standards is to establish certain nuisance factors that if committed or exceeded in the use of land, buildings, and other structures will be detrimental to the use, enjoyment, and value of other land, buildings, and structures. will be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, and will be contrary to the comprehensive plan of zoning. The comprehensive plan of zoning is to have uses in places where they conduct their business and operations without impacting other places that are in different districts. And when you have close proximity of the Residence A district on Dudley Avenue to the B1 district on Main Street, that's where you have potential conflict with nuisance factors, especially noise. If a restaurant wanted to have pleasant outdoor seating with no outdoor music entertainment whatsoever, and the residential neighbor nearby played loud music that bothered the outdoor diners and drove them indoors, that would be the flip side of the same thing. And it's a shame that it could happen, but it's basically a bad neighbor situation because zoning should not be getting into monitoring decibels with a calibrated meter to establish a threshold for action. That's not what zoning should be doing. But these kinds of activities can lead to that. So, yes, Chris.
So, I mean, overall, I know Penny Lane Pub is here tonight, but I think we needed to have this discussion at some point. And I mean, depending on how you go forward tonight, I'm also going to need some guidance. So this is really through the whole pandemic and the COVID seating, there have been other businesses with outdoor music. This is the only complaint that I've received. And we're here tonight because of the complaint, as well as, I mean, it really hasn't been an issue anyway. So I'm hoping that tonight too, you can provide me with some guidance as to how to handle, you know, these requests for outdoor music. I mean, there are, in this case, there's residential uses, but there's other situations where there's businesses that are surrounded by business uses, and granted, they're different businesses. I understand the uniformity clause. So it's just something to keep in mind through this discussion.
What do you think? Other commissioners?
It's hard to enforce, when it says no noise will be transmitted outside the lot where it originates, so therein lies the problem. How do you control that?
The noise ordinance is
Yeah.
typically then, the noise ordinance is typically then.
That's only from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
But you have
noise
parameters within your statement. You could put parameters within the statement of use.
Well,
If-
then, yeah.
If they
But
can
that's not-
demonstrate that. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there. It's,
Well, you know, so Alex presents that the hours of operation are 5 to 8. And it, you know, from May to mid-August, that's what, May, June, July until the middle of August. And sound levels actively managed. How are they going to be actively managed? Not by the neighbors, I hope.
Well,
You know, I mean, it sounds like,
Can I comment on that?
yeah,
I heard a few points, one being that no diner would want to sit, with loud music playing, not able to hear their partner. That's our busiest location of the restaurant. I think that goes to show that the music is not drowning out any, audible conversations that people are having at their tables outside. The other sort of points I heard were on the bass, and I talked with him about that. And we stopped allowing the bass player last year for one of our groups who were a 3-person group, which we only have one 3-person group with a bass, and it had become an issue, and the bass player no longer plays with them. I'm just showing that I do monitor it, and though I think when perception sort of rules a lot of things, and when you get a bad taste in your mouth towards something or someone, it influences how you feel about other situations. I think we have a little bit of this, and that's fair, and I accept that responsibility as a business owner, and I empathize with them and, I understand it. We do actively monitor it. I received a complaint from Kim about the girl Emma who plays with us all acoustically the next day. And that's where I realized we had a problem, was because she came and said that it was too loud the day after Emma had played. And Emma is the sweet little girl who plays only acoustically.
And
Which-
the only one that I would like to have back there, Alex.
So,
It took me days to catch up with you, so,
right,
it's loud.
To sort of sum up, I would be open to, enforcing 5 to 8 or, whatever we have to do to make it structured. Only acoustic would be certainly fine with us. I want to.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering, Alex, is, and I am just trying to clarify here, because my windows shake every freaking weekend. And I'm wondering if you don't have some sort of a bass player there, why is it that my windows are shaking? Why is it that I sit in my house and hear boom, 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 and I'm not alone? My mother hears it, Beth hears it, we all hear it. If you don't have something there with a low frequency instrument, why are we hearing this?
Well,
You know what I mean? Really?
Well, it's a particular characteristic of the physical situation with the shape of the building and reflection and things like that, that's contributing to the sound trespassing across your property line. And I understand that the bass is an issue. And that even if your hearing's not so great, if you can't hear the high frequencies, you can feel that internally, and it affects your life. All right, so with regard to the acoustic live music and no amplification, that would appear to me to be the best starting point, and for all parties. And that you wouldn't have to put up with, a tall acoustic bass where the bass player stands up and plays it. That's not likely that shaker window is 40, 50 feet away, but you might still sense it. But the electric guitar and the electronic amplification is what shakes the windows of the cars going down the street, with the bass jacked up really high. And so the acoustic live music with no amplification, it seems to me, would be a starting point, because the executive order from the governor allowed for that before. And that would be a start. And I guess the zoning commission would accommodate business wishes and mollify, placate, ameliorate the sound issues for the neighbors, to restrict it to the point where it shouldn't be a problem. So that's sort of the middle ground. If the other commissioners would consider that, or perhaps go farther or not as far, then what do you think?
I think that sounds reasonable.
Could we try 1 day a week instead of 2? I mean, this is
You have to ask.
day after day. It gets to be, just in case this doesn't work. And if it works, then we can explore the option of going to 2 days a week.
All right, the proposal from Alex Folks is that live music would only be in operation on Fridays and Saturdays. So it would be
It's still 2 days a week. It's
The week,
a
the weekend.
long
Yeah,
weekend.
it's a small percentage of the days of the week. I think it's reasonable to have on weekend nights acoustic. I mean, I think if we're doing one night, it's not becoming, worth it for us to make the investment, in it if it's more limited than, acoustic and 2 nights a week. I think that's a very reasonable, way to kind of go about it. Just having the 2 with 2 days a week, 5 to 8, 3 hours. Not a tall order, I don't think.
What do you think, Sam?
I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's a good compromise on both sides. He's willing to go down to acoustic only, and it's only 3 hours.
Tom?
I think we got a regulation that says you can't have noise outside the lot. And this is gonna be a problem. It's not easily controlled. To say it's controlled, I think it's gonna be hard to manage.
Andrew?
So if we allow the acoustic from 5 to 8, 2 nights a week, could we do a short trial period? Like not like the whole season, but maybe a month and see what happens?
Yeah, that's all negotiable, let's say.
Yeah.
And if it's acoustic performers, there's probably an ample supply of acoustic performers out there who would line up for the opportunity. Yes, Chris?
Just one point about the noise off of the lot. I think it's a regulation you need to revisit.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do
Lawnmower generates noise off of the lot. A generator. I mean, if you read it to that strictest interpretation, I mean, things we all commonly do. I'm probably one of the noisiest people around between a weed whacker and a leaf blower and whatever else is going on. That's still noise being transmitted off the lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
why add another one?
Well, I'm just saying, if you read it that, so I mean, I think at some point we need to revisit it because I think it's too restrictive if you read it
To the letter.
to the
Yeah.
letter of the law.
Well,
Just,
I've had neighbors with the leaf blower just get out there with his hearing protection on, but walking around with a leaf blower for hours. It's not enjoyable.
I have a neighbor who does it at 11 o'clock at night, I understand.
But once the leaves,
Got you.
but it's a limited number of times that it happens, because once the leaves are done, he doesn't go out.
Well,
there
anyway, I'm just
and
saying,
blow the grass.
I mean, we're just trying to get back on track, but I think in general, no noise to be emitted off the lot, that's nearly impossible.
That's the
So,
ideal.
I think,
case.
but that, I think is for another, a regulation.
Yeah.
Can I ask what this would mean for the concerts on the green? Like, if this were to be regulated, we were not allowed to have music outside, what would that look like for that?
It's a good question.
What the question, the regulations do not allow it, therefore it's prohibited. That's where the regulations start. And so if you're looking at section 31, that's the B1 district, it has a list of permitted uses. It has the as of right, then it has a list of special exception permit uses, which including restaurants in general. And it also has, does it have, section 31 have its own list of things that are prohibited? Or does it simply refer to section 11, which has things that are prohibited? Yes, 33.3. I'm sorry, 31.3. Prohibited uses. Motor vehicle, service station, motel, conference facility, vet hospital, bowling alley, warehousing, manufacturer, with painting, plumbing, electrical, sheet metal, carpentry, blacksmith, welding, machine shop. So we have a list of prohibited uses, but that, as I read earlier in section 6, if a use is not listed as permitted, it's prohibited.
On the acoustic side of it, is it limited to a number of players at a time? Meaning, is it a single player, or is it trio, or is it 5? What's the experience been?
Our largest group band is 3, and that's only one of the people. And like I said, we told them that the bass player can no longer play. So we have two and one is really.
All right, so if it was limited to acoustic for a time frame as being discussed right now, and it was a single acoustic player, is that something that both parties could experiment with? Is that the lesser of two evils?
I'd be okay with just the girl with a guitar.
Well, I mean, are we limiting it to only female?
No, obviously, no.
But you get them to three-piece acoustics and you do end up with a bass guitar. And then we're right back to kind of that low frequency vibration that travels hill and wide.
Some will be, you know, a one person or a duo, and then they'll have a friend that joins them and just comes up to sing a song. It's not always bass. There's actually, well, there was only one with bass. So I think that's difficult, a little difficult to regulate. We could say it. I feel like it doesn't truly in like how it actually works is like having two or having three. It's the acoustic that I think makes the big difference. Plugging in and amplifying amplifies it.
Right.
If we were to have two singers harmonizing and one guitarist, like that's gonna be, you know, possibly something that we encounter, you know, as a possibility. We get new acts, you know, wanting to play all the time and like to support new people. I think a good compromise for me, and I'm saying this as objectively as I can, is unplugging it is the biggest difference maker.
I think it would be.
And so I think when you try to regulate past that down to, you know, the girl with the guitar only, it's like, all right, it's sort of getting to the silly kind of area. Maybe silly, not be great.
One would think though, with a trio of three different instruments, the acoustics could be louder than a single acoustics player, right? Potentially.
It depends on the instrument. and the
I'm
performance,
just in
yeah.
general conversation here, I'm not saying
Yeah.
one or the other. Just trying to see if there's a way to work within what we have and meet the needs of both parties as a trial.
I
I
think
mean,
it's
yeah.
gonna be difficult to limit the number of people. Because if you have someone playing a guitar and the singer sings and has a tambourine, then you're already in, I mean, it's.
No, that's not land use regulations, just regulate the use in terms of live acoustic, non-amplified outdoor music and
Restricted times,
all
days.
the other aspects of it are either they're part of that or they're not.
Why don't we try that, ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience? And see how it goes. Let them do it one weekend. And see how it's regulated, and see how many people he gets, 2 or 3, right? Is 3 the most?
3 is the most we really ever have, just by sort of the organic nature of the payment structure. Like we pay, I don't know, 250, 300 at the most. So like if you're getting more than that, like we can't pay 500, 600 a night for, you know, a full band to come. So yeah, generally it's 1 to 2 really.
So. No plug-in amplifiers.
No electronic
No,
amplification.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be-
and just acoustic,
Right.
and the singer maybe,
Well, that's acoustic, isn't it? Acoustic means it's not amplified.
right? But, you know, a guitar maybe and a singer, I don't know. Do you wanna let them try it just for a weekend and see how it goes?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, we have to be fair to both sides, I mean, he has a business and I mean, if it's as bad as what you said it was, then I would say no to him. But, you know, there's gonna be no bass, no amplification.
It might-
Is that quiet? Can that be quiet? Alex, I'm looking at
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry, you're asking me a question, that'd be fine. Yes, we will turn, like I said, our plan already was to turn, like we had it to be fair, we had it facing towards Dudley, which I never even put together, but we made the decision at the end of last year to change it to the music coming in to Main Street as opposed to out towards, you know, the residential area. So I
So do you
think,
think that would make a big difference?
I think it's.
That makes a difference. I owned a studio before, and I had the same situation. And if you do face it the other way, it does decrease the noise.
Well, with acoustics, there wouldn't be a need for any type of amplification or speaker use.
No,
Right, that's what I was.
yeah,
Right, that's what acoustics is.
right.
So if acoustics is what the decision becomes, your use of speakers or amplification would cease,
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah,
correct.
Okay.
that's what we're saying,
So
yeah.
if there was a singer, there'd be no microphone.
That's
Right,
right.
Oh, well, because there's not gonna be a singer unless she goes around to the tables.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a pretty small space, so it's, if someone sings, it will be, it won't be a hardship on anybody, they just will be able to. It's not a very big space, and I think that's largely part of the problem, it's a very small space, is it even as big as this room?
Could be.
That's probably about the size. Well, we have the whole garden too, that is, it's bigger than this room with the garden, but I'd be open to try. I honestly don't know if that experience would justify us having music. I'm happy to try it. And I already talked to my business partner, and his name is Wilson. We both said, if we can't have music, we can't have music. Like, I'm okay, my life, but I want to be reasonable to the town. That's the most important thing. I don't think Dudley is the whole town, but I think it's part of obviously close knit to us. I'm happy to try it acoustically. I have question marks whether it would be good enough, but if it's not, like, I get the other side if it's too loud, and, maybe we can readdress in the future. Maybe we don't have music out there. We still have a nice space, and I think it's a reasonable compromise. Again, I don't think Tim likes me very much, but I think it's a reasonable compromise to maybe come together.
Being the nice place, and I suggested to your manager 2 years ago that you move the speakers in another direction, so.
Well, that might be a
You're
good
talking about
compromise.
the town, but we are your neighbors.
Mm.
And this is a real hardship for us, and it's not anything personal, I don't have anything against you as an individual. You've always been very polite to me, and I appreciate that, and I don't think that come over and back to one head with a stick either. But this is, it's difficult to live with.
I think it's a reasonable compromise to see how both sides can, and come to an understanding and, interpret what the changes, mean for each side. It's not without also affecting my business that I will be doing this. And, again, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to try it. It will not have the same effect, I think, and that's okay. So really just my only argument is that I think this is a very reasonable. I would also like consideration for the fact that coordinating these musical acts is sort of a difficult and time consuming process. And we schedule them out months in advance, and, we've already canceled for the first few that we had booked. So having it for one weekend trial is like a little sort of ambiguous for us to them, and coordinating that. So it's difficult to think about booking one weekend and, seeing how it goes and then booking another one. I think it's reasonable to try for a season and then sort of reapproach it, acoustically and, see from there.
It's another whole 4
No,
months.
I
that we
wrote some notes, I don't know.
If it's not working.
We'll have to,
Can't compare the town, the green, where now we have a beautiful gazebo waiting to have music on. Once a week for an hour and a half, that band plays. That's it. And it's not next to my house.
I mean, overall, if that's gonna be a strict interpretation, that's no music at parks, no music at beach associations. I mean, it can go on and on. No music for parades. I mean, that's, if you read it to that interpretation, and I've worked for the town for 23 years, and we've never gotten to the point that it's been interpreted that strictly.
Yeah,
But going through some of the things that were discussed and looking at the statement of use. The statement of use is live operation on Fridays and Saturdays between 5 and 8. So just a few things that come to mind that I just want. What if,
Your regular hours of operation, you're open until 9 p.m.
well, I'm,
At 8, the music would stop.
It really always has.
so that's not where I'm going with it.
Okay.
So it says Friday and Saturday. Well, what about from 5 to 8? So what about Memorial Day? What if he wanted to have a band from 3 to 5?
4th of July, if it doesn't fall on a Friday or Saturday.
I'm just kind of throwing it out there because 5 to 8. I mean, 3 hours is one thing. My thought would be rather than have it between noon and 8, once a day. On a Friday and Saturday. So if you wanted to vary the hour, whether it was Memorial Day or Labor Day or 4th of July.
What about us? What if we want to?
I'm just trying to-
Yeah, right.
And we'd like to listen to our own music instead of.
So I'm
listening to
just,
our
I'm not favoring one way or the other. I'm just going through what's here, what's being discussed.
I don't like the noon to.
So you
Well,
were saying choose one day on the weekend?
well, right now it says Friday and Saturday between 5 and 8. So
Yeah.
that's 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, but what if they wanted to have it from earlier in the day? On a holiday?
Well, no, hours of operation,
5 to 8.
And no
5 to 8,
holiday.
Friday
I'm
and
just,
Saturday.
hours of operation.
I'm just being realistic because I'm the one who deals with most of the,
Yeah, no, if you're asking for between 5 and 8 on Friday and Saturday, then that's
and no
That's it.
holiday.
That's it.
that's it,
That's
Yeah.
it,
yeah.
Okay, so then it says May to mid-August.
We have a
Like
defined.
date.
Well,
start
this is
date,
what I'm trying to
defined May
do.
date and August.
So
date.
May first is,
Which gate in
May-
May and which
well-
gate in August?
well, that's
Why
what
don't we
I,
just say May 1st to end through August.
Or like
right?
first weekend.
Well, I
in
did-
May.
You said mid-August.
I was gonna say May first to September 5th. That would get through Labor Day. Well,
To
September,
get to the specifics, you end up writing a contract and we'll probably have to have our consulting attorney take a look at what we're talking about to make sure that it's legally feasible, allowable, because we can't go up making up stuff that's not enforceable or not, it's not within our powers to do that. We'd have to check with our attorney, but,
I don't think we need to check with our attorney. It's
well, I do.
a statement of use. I mean, we have a statement of use for hours of
Well,
operation for a
If
business.
it's structured the way it was for Island Cove years ago, then it could probably work. We did a temporary in that case.
Well, that was a whole different, there was a lawsuit involved with that. I mean, that, so I'm gonna say, I think it's just a bad example to go through. So what we're talking about here is a temporary seasonal. If it went May 1st to September,
May 5th is a Friday.
So just put first weekend in May.
that's what I'm making
But
it
what are
very
you thinking,
restricted.
Alex? Mid-August is what date? Instead of extending it out.
First
You
week
said
in May,
mid-August.
last week in
That's the 15th or the 16th.
I'm looking it up in the calendar.
So May 15th is a Saturday.
Sure.
Just, I mean, so it would be like May,
May
you're gonna
5th,
go Friday,
For this year, yeah.
you're gonna do
I'll-
Friday, Saturdays, it'd be May
Yeah.
14th. May 14th.
May 14th or August?
we're starting with August. This is where I'm trying to be clear. So that's what May 5th is the first Friday.
Okay, May 5th to, and what's mid-August?
Well, that's what we're trying to clarify.
The last Friday of August is the 25th, Saturday is the 26th.
I'm trying to save him a couple of weeks. He said mid-August. So what's mid-August?
Be the 18th or the 19th.
Which day in August? August 19th?
The 18th and 19th.
18th and 19th, right.
So,
You're right.
yeah,
We're
May-
talking for a temporary, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously you gotta change the language if it's like
Right.
not temporary, because yeah, shifts.
You got those?
I don't know, everybody's all over the place.
May 5th.
I have May 5th.
And then,
Ending date is August 19th, which is a
Is-
Saturday.
which is a Saturday, to end the 19th.
No amplification. 3 hours maximum from 5 to 8. It already says speakers facing towards. the
No
building.
There'll be no speaker.
I mean, no speakers, I'm sorry.
No speakers.
No electric amplification, no battery, it's like no electronic amplification, I guess.
No, nothing.
Simplified.
Anything
What
else?
else? No, I don't know, I'm asking for permission.
What else?
No, no. I think that's everything.
As I recall, those were the limits that we had previously put on, the restaurant that had approval, but seemed to want more outdoor entertainment, but those are the boundaries we put on that earlier approval.
Right. Okay.
Anything else?
Are you gonna make a motion?
I have a question. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work?
You'll be back
Doesn't
here
work?
with us, just like,
Yeah.
you'll be here with us again.
So if the situation is still unacceptable, we just file another complaint and come back?
Shoot me an email and then I'll invite the commission to go down and check it
And
out
listen.
as well.
Okay.
I mean, this also gives the commission members an opportunity.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you guys have any interest, we have, in case none of you are familiar with the exact layout of things. I have the GIS distances and the mapping, if anybody wants to take a look at it. So,
So you could.
We can submit them
You could
for
submit
record.
that to us for,
okay, I'm
just
uploading to the
one
neighbors
copy,
too.
you got both, one copy would be fine.
Yeah, I will admit my copier, when I printed this out, was kind of running out of ink, but I think you can generally get a sense of where the houses are. It's close.
Cool. And then,
Mr. Chairman, does it have to be a motion made?
Yes.
do we need a motion for this?
And make a motion
Yeah.
for outdoor seating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it would be a motion
all right. So
for a temporary
Right,
or an approval for
temporary approval for live
try
outdoor acoustic, not amplified music to accompany outdoor seating.
at 150 Main Street, Old Saybrook Penny Lane Pub.
From May 5th to August 19th, Fridays and Saturdays
Only.
3
only,
p.m.,
within the hours of 5 to 8 p.m.
5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
with the sound levels actively managed. By the neighbors? No,
Second.
okay.
All right.
Who made the motion?
I make the motion.
Oh, okay.
Jerry is
I beat you, Jerry.
Mark
I assisted, yes.
Calderella second the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion for temporary approval of outdoor live music, acoustic, as in the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Got it? Okay. We'll do the experiment. And it could work.
I hope it does. Nobody wants to fight with their neighbors.
I hope it does too.
If there's nothing else like it, seems to me, there's an opportunity to find a new niche that people would go because it's low key, not boom, 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 unless that's the target age group you're looking for.
Our AC/DC cover band will now no longer be invited, of course, the joke. We don't have that. Yes, I agree. I think I think we can come to an understanding between, I hope. Between
If you do well, there'll be other restaurants that would like to follow, and if you mess it up, there'll be 42 other restaurants that will be angry, so. I know. So where else do you see that this, well, that's, keep in mind that that's a B1 district. So if we stick on Main Street, there are other venues which maybe could do it as well. They're pretty constrained in terms of space. Their outdoor seating in many cases is on the sidewalk side of the building. Not, other restaurants don't seem to have a back patio. And so this is a rather unique situation. And zoning's not supposed to be focused on spot zoning for just one property, but there is always a way around. And other places in town, they're in different districts. So B4 and the B3 district where there are restaurants. And B2 as well. There's a restaurant at the shopping center, right? And
We could go through all night, and pick out where it could happen.
now you're gonna get into the intricacies of previously approved or previously existing non-conforming, and then it gets crazy, so.
We need to
It's a
move
win-win.
on.
All right, thanks.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
This is the Mac Geo. Did you do
Well, this was
Oh,
Google Earth.
oh,
This is where the, this is where it's COVID. This is This is,
Yeah.
that's house, this is my mother's house, this is my house.
We don't.
And when I, it's my GI. The first.
Yeah.
You look up one word, Geo.
Yeah, well, if this was, if I had printed this with color, that would have shown up too.
Bring you right to some decibel.
So we can't.
They gotta know for sure.
You don't want to do that.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
You wanna go?
night. You want to look at? You want to look at?
I want to get on with this,
But I mean, you say
the drive through.
like the gazebo and Parkinate.
Okay. Right.
Workshop.
Clubhouse.
Next on the agenda, workshop. Drive-through windows as accessory use for financial pharmacies and indoor restaurants, other food and beverage establishments. We got dated April 10th. Notes from the ARB regarding their preliminary input to prospective regulations regarding drive-throughs.
Mhm.
All right, so the ARB did not finish their review and they're gonna report to you. I just thought that I would provide you with just to kind of show you that they spent a lot of time on it. There's a lot of detail on it. And it's really here more aesthetics. There's some things about where they should be, but I think they're so clarifying, you know, their direction, and by your next meeting, you should have more input. So I don't know if you just want to go forward with what we have tonight by May 1st, right? Is that our next meeting, May 1st?
Yeah.
Yes. We should have something from them. They have one more meeting and they should be able to wrap that up.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to go back to where we were at the last discussion and I can run through it. Does
Yeah, can you do that?
that work or I don't want to
No?
drag things along. All right. So at the last meeting, we discussed removing drive-throughs from the B2. Well, actually, with the exception of bank. In the B4, drive-throughs for pharmacies, restaurants, food and beverage establishments, because I think at that meeting decided there were different regulations for banks versus pharmacies and restaurants. This was where you wanted to go with it.
Mhm.
You also decided, that you did not want to have just a kiosk, you wanted an enclosed building with a minimum gross floor area for a pharmacy or an indoor restaurant. Banks were a different category. At the meeting, we did not come to a consensus as to how big the enclosed building would be. Have you had,
We no consensus on what?
you left it that you didn't know how big you wanted the building to be.
The
Square foot of the
Square
building.
footage.
minimum, for restaurant or,
Restaurant and pharmacy.
and farms. Minimum square foot for building in a business district, as I recall, is 750 square feet. I think that.
We had to remove that, though, didn't we have to
Yes.
remove? We had to remove that for,
Minimum, for business district, it's still in there, I think. No?
I think we removed it for the new state statute that said you couldn't have a minimum for,
I thought that was for residential.
that was 500.
Yeah, we removed the minimum for residential, because you can't have a minimum square footage for residents. But I think for business, minimum 750 survived.
You're right, 750, the 500 was the
We took out the,
500.
the other.
Okay. So do you want to go with the 750 to be consistent?
To be consistent, yes. They're probably gonna go bigger, but it means you're not gonna get a kiosk with a bunch of.
And that would be only for pharmacy and restaurants, so
Right.
that would allow a kiosk like Liberty
Okay.
Bank.
Right.
Okay. All right, you discussed the maximum number of drive-throughs and the number per lot. I think you came to the,
We came close to agreeing on one per lot.
Right.
didn't we?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, thought
I
we
think we
did,
did.
thought we did agree to that.
Yeah.
that's what I'm going through now, and I think it went to 90,000 square feet is where you left it
Correct.
instead of the 80,000.
Right.
With a minimum street frontage of 350 feet, either along Boston Post Road Route 1, Boston Post Road East Route 1, or Spencer Plain 166,
South,
when located south of 95.
Right.
That would eliminate the Middlesex Turnpike and other areas of town that were not closer to the highway.
Yeah, the auto, you up past the auto mall.
Right.
It's not, right, that's good.
I don't
Yes,
think I have
yeah.
the latest one.
This one,
320,
You-
330. Oh, I have 323.
Just for clarification for my purpose, in that middle of the paragraph, it says either along Boston Post Road Route 1, and then it says Boston Post Road East Route 1. What's the difference?
I just was thinking that whole Mariners Way, we've been calling it from pretty much Pat's to
Yeah.
where it turns as you take, or I'm sorry, John, Mystic Market to, sorry, I've been doing this too long.
I have the same, yeah, well. I have the same initial ask. Where is Route 1 on the Boston Post Road East? It runs from Mystic Market to the on-ramp?
Okay. I'm thinking of east side,
I know you are.
so, okay, you clarified
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
I get it, thank you.
You could just put Boston Post Road
No,
one. We've been using Route 1 East so long for the whole
Yeah.
Mariners Way
Okay.
concept. All right. Lot depth. This was from a few meetings ago,
400 feet,
400 feet, that did not change.
correct.
I think that's on the first page,
Right.
the 400, yeah.
At the last meeting, there was discussion that any new drive-through window would be located X feet from any other lot with a drive-through window, a separation distance measured along the street line from property line to property line. This does not apply to financial institutions, so it'd be a separation from property line to property line for pharmacies, restaurants and beverage establishments.
Right.
There was a number of 1,000 feet that came up.
I had at 1,000,
Yeah,
and that's a distance from Dunkin' to McDonald's. Is that appropriate? Works for me, but how many possible drive-throughs could result from a regulation like that? My rough estimation on a map would be that you could get 8 along the length of Boston Post Road.
Right.
That would have 1,000 feet separation.
A maximum of 8.
Yeah, it's rough,
Approximately.
yeah, approximately 8.
That's just by distance, that's not by lots though, right?
By distance.
Distance.
This is by distance.
Yes, yeah, also in between.
And they're subject to the other conditions as well, with the depth and the front.
Right.
That's why 8 seemed like a low number, but
All right,
I'm okay with 1,000.
okay,
Everybody else?
yeah.
Mark, you look like you're
Quizzical looking.
Yeah, I know.
concerned.
I just trying to envision that mentally.
that applies to properties on both sides of Boston Post Road, right?
Dunkin' Donuts to McDonald's, it's
Is 1,000 square, is 1,000 feet.
almost a quarter of a mile.
Mhm.
1,300 feet is a quarter, you know what I mean? 15, 20 or something.
Can mark something up for the next meeting and it's not. If you think we need it.
I agree with that.
Anything more?
That's in the
Huh?
B.
No, I was
it's in the
thinking less.
B4,
Yeah.
so,
That's,
Intuitively, you think less.
yeah,
yeah,
so
intuitive.
this, wherever that all is. Smithland Supply.
But you're limited.
Dunkin'.
That's the only thing. If you
Yeah,
had
it is pretty far.
close and then none.
I don't think it should be farther.
It's more
than
of
that.
a density versus volume. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm struggling with.
And that 1,000 does not
I know.
include meds.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
pharmacies
I
and
mean, if I
restaurants.
had 2 here and then nothing for 2 miles, I mean, you know, that's because the location. It fits the location versus the distance.
Right.
That's what I'm struggling with. That's all.
You get to the big piece of property that's behind Big Y. That they've talked about, and there's, I don't know how long that, you know. Potentially you could put a few drive-throughs in there, they're off the road too. They're off of Route 1. But if it's
When you go
1,000
up Center,
Well,
Center
no,
Road West,
but I mean, it wouldn't work because it would be just like we talked about Custom Drive.
Right.
If it's only Boston Post Road. Then it would eliminate, in Spencer
Right.
Plain, it would eliminate any like back roads
Right.
that would
Okay,
Connect to.
connect to it.
okay.
And I don't think a drive-through would wanna locate on, like at the end of Custom
No.
Drive, I mean, it's just not a high visible.
They never see it. I was thinking that property across from Food Bag that is on Route 1. That they want to develop, if somebody might want to develop. You know. And there's probably, how many could you put in there, but 1,000 feet would restrict it to probably. And then you get another property and so it makes sense.
But then you have the other restriction.
There's other restrictions, right?
So you're leaving that at 1,000. Wait, 9. 8, 10. You discussed reducing the setbacks for pedestrian nodes. And that the liner building reduced setback would not apply. So the balance between that is having people walk from sidewalks to shops and services, but you also have the pedestrian node regulations to have smaller liner buildings for the street facade.
Right.
So then in G, do you need that second sentence? Because that's just explaining the reasoning, right?
You don't need to, it's, I guess, more of a, it was a justification.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is still a huge work in progress, so. All right,
It doesn't hurt, but
But it's not consistent with,
it isn't
consistent
really
with the zoning
necessary, yeah.
statement.
all right, so we can
Right.
remove that, maybe just put it as a
No, side,
note as a
I got
reason.
a picture.
I'm just thinking if, you know, when you get to the point, if you keep that in, it goes to another commission,
Mhm,
you know, and maybe just put a little footnote.
yeah,
All right. A maximum of one drive-through per building,
right.
which actually that probably can get removed because you said a maximum of two,
Is crossed out, I thought.
right? So that would be a moot point. Oh, well, actually, let's go back. You could have a bank and a pharmacy in the same building,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Let's go back. Well, no, you're still considering only difference is a bank can have a kiosk. It does not have to be in a building. So I guess it wouldn't apply. Because it's still a drive-through business. So H is probably something you should remove. If you're only allowing one per lot. That means you could have a bank, a pharmacy, or
Yeah, one
a food and beverage restaurant.
of three.
Unless you don't want to, unless you don't care if there's a bank and a pharmacy and a bank and a restaurant on the same lot.
The word heavily. Does it have value there?
What? Where are you?
On J,
We're on H.
Huh?
We're on H.
well, H, yeah.
Oh, we're on H. I'm sorry. One drive-through per building structure, yes.
So the question is. For banks, you separated bank drive-throughs. From restaurants, would you allow for a bank and a pharmacy or a bank and a restaurant on the same lot?
No,
Because, so you'd have a drive-through of a restaurant and a bank on the same.
So
lot.
say you had I'll pick on Dunkin' Donuts, if it was a bigger lot, you could have a drive-through Liberty Bank kiosk.
No,
In A, we're saying a maximum of one drive-through window is
Right.
permitted on any one lot, so then.
Well, that's what I'm making sure, because
Right.
you talk,
Be out.
Right.
all right, that's where I was going with it, unless you were thinking something different.
right,
Thank you, Edward.
I'm just getting tired, that's all.
All right, you talked about no building having a drive-through into substation outdoor speakers with a drive-through be located within X feet from a residence district boundary line residence or mixed use. There was discussion about having that be 100 feet, and there was discussion about having that entire 100 feet screen, but then we talked about, or you talked about 50 feet, so that wasn't decided.
Okay.
So what,
I didn't hear what you said.
so on J,
Yeah,
we talked about having 100-foot,
oh, yeah,
no building or structure having a drive-through window, substation, or outdoor speakers would have a drive-through business located within X feet from a residence district boundary line, residential use or mixed use. And there was 100 feet was discussed, there was back and forth with it, and then there was 100 feet. There was a discussion on that being all landscaping, there was discussion on it being 75 and 50, there was numbers all over the place. So what are we? Do you have any further thought on that?
I think the 100 feet is okay.
I think 100 feet is okay.
yeah,
And with that 100 feet, how much of it would be landscaped?
100%.
But 100-foot residence, it must be. Gotta take out the word heavily,
Take out, yeah, I would say take out heavily.
must be.
That's an existing reg that I pulled it from, I think.
Oh, okay,
All right, so we'll take,
must be screened with.
So if it's not 100%, and it's, let's say 70%, what can the other 30% be?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that
So
was the
that leaves
discussion.
it up for individual interpretation.
It could be a drive-through
It
lane.
could be through a drive-through lane, so I would think the 100-foot all landscape.
And there was back and forth with 100, if was the 100 too much?
I don't think so.
I didn't, because I think I made the recommendation, but.
So the lot's minimum of 350 feet wide, somewhere on that lot, you gotta put a building.
You're saying a driveway's gonna be right down the middle, so what it's, that's what it's telling you.
Well, no,
Well, I mean,
that's what I'm getting
it's,
at, then you gotta drive around one side, you're gonna have 100 feet of that, the buffer, which I think is good. But is it?
it's 100 feet if there's, so for example,
Thank you.
the 100 feet is a few things. The 100 feet is, say, you were at the Saybrook Shopping Center and you were gonna put a drive-through. Not that it would fit necessarily, but up behind, over by Saybrook Station Apartment. So that's still a business district, you'd have 100 feet. Even though it's a residential use or a residential boundary. So like how we have a residence district boundary line, it would also go through to create a buffer, say there was an affordable housing development. The residence district boundary line wouldn't apply,
That's 50 feet.
depending on the district.
The only glitch is this is like a one-way deal, because if you first had a drive-through restaurant approved that met this condition, and later somebody wanted to put residential mixed use within 100 feet, this does not prevent that. You end up with a non-conforming drive-through situation that occurred after the fact. And I think that's okay. That way the people who
So
are
pretty
gonna,
much actually a good example is
who are
Burger
gonna
King.
live there.
They'd
when
have
it's
to,
built,
if there was a new
they
Burger
know
King
this
going
drive.
in, there'd be a
not
100-foot
like
bus
Yeah,
on the
surprise.
back of the Burger King.
It's okay.
That's okay.
We talked about. So at the last meeting, we talked about stacking spaces. And at one point, there was discussion about having 5 spaces to the menu board, 5 spaces to the pavement window. So that all went away. And it was broken down for financial institutions, 9 stacking spaces, 2 of the 9 after the window. Pharmacies would be 10, 2 of the 10 after the drop-off pickup window. Food and beverage indoor restaurant, 14. Of the 14, 2 would be located after the pickup window. And then there was additional discussion about menu board and additional spaces, that all went away.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean,
That
I,
was good, because if there were ever a case where there was a food drive-through and substation and had stacking lanes, the stacking lanes are restricted, limited, established by this. But if they also had curbside pickup, which is not involving a drive-through window, they have to use the existing stacking lanes. They don't get to add more stacking lanes. This regulates stacking lanes.
well, I mean, we didn't touch any of the definitions, but I mean, would it make sense under parking to say curbside pickup are not counted as parking spaces towards the count? Or do we have enough anyway?
Where are you?
No, she's.
I'm not on a sentence.
New subject,
Oh.
yeah. No, curbside pickup is just, it just needs a stacking space and an actual spot.
So if you look at McDonald's, there's 3 spaces right now with an unpermitted banner for pickup 1, pickup 2, and pickup 3.
Those were all parking spaces.
Those were all parking spaces counted towards the parking count. I mean, it's not like they're full all the time, but it's not just curbside pickup, it's also people run stuff to your car.
It's the same thing, do the same thing in Walmart.
And Kohl's, and there's a number of different stores where you can just
Right.
pull in and then you park until Stop and Shop.
And people bring it out to you?
Mhm.
Oh,
You just text them and you
I
text
shop at
them.
Waltz. They don't bring it out to you. But you can call them and they'll deliver it to you if you're sick.
But this pickup business is getting more and more.
I don't think it hurts to define it. Clarity?
Or do you need to define it? Do we have enough parking requirements
Yeah,
that you don't? I mean, how many people do you see at Walmart occupying the 10 spaces for,
Yeah, you know.
all right, I'm just,
The initial intent of the 10 extra spaces was to allow people to pull over there and eat in their car on top of all the other requirements. People don't seem to actually behave that way, but that was the design. I sometimes see people eating in their car at McDonald's on the lot. But I don't pay attention at Burger King, but how many other drive-through restaurants have people eating in their car on the lot?
I guess the Burger King people will do that too. They have drive through window to pick up food. You're either gonna drive away or you're gonna pull over and eat in your car anyway. I think they both do that.
the seagulls like to eat in the parking spaces too.
You can drive down to the point, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Park your car there and they'll go, yeah.
All right, so we're not gonna touch parking.
Do you wish to regulate curbside pickup aisles, stacking spaces separately? Or
I don't know if we need to, is what I'm
Right.
saying, but it keeps
Not
coming
yet.
up.
not yet, but since we don't have an application before us, we can bring up Whole Foods, which has Amazon owns Whole Foods.
I'd rather not talk about it because we have an application in the office
Oh,
for,
you do?
I'd rather not talk about it.
Oh, okay. But
Upcoming application.
But let's just say there's a business that has another business affiliated with it, which does curbside pickup. And they sort of go together on the same lot, even if there's no drive-through windows.
Well, is curbside pickup considered something in parking? Or is it considered something in driveway?
I think it's parking,
Parking.
Parking.
because it's not necessarily a restaurant, it's a grocery
Right, we
store.
treat it separately.
Okay.
I mean, Luigi's was running a pickup line.
Well, that's
Well,
COVID.
that's cool, yeah.
It's still good at that.
Well, during COVID, you did everything.
It's so nice not to have to go in there.
Well, we
So, I mean, if you're
Leave it.
picking up, if you're ordering
leave
and
it
you're
as
in a
part of
hurry.
Park.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just put something together for parking.
Yeah.
Pickup parking, or I'll work something.
Pickup parking.
I mean, I don't think you need to have
That sounds terrible. Don't put.
pick,
Pickup parking.
drop off. I mean, it could delivery, and I'll come up with something.
Okay.
And just real quick. So we'll definitely have to change parking. Now that you change the other, so that can get adjusted. Right. So your next meeting, you have ARB comments?
Yep.
What else do you want to work on this? I was thinking maybe have Jeff take a look just to kind of see
Yeah.
If he was gonna design something, I don't know. Is that overkill?
No,
No,
I don't think so. I think that's due diligence.
Would you like to open the workshop up for public comment? Even though
At
it's a
some point.
workshop,
At some point.
you wanna do it at your next meeting?
Do we need to hear from ARB?
Oh, yeah, we should hear from AR. That's probably.
I think we'll hear from AR.
Well, I'm saying, shouldn't we have ARB's full information and discuss it before we open it up to?
I don't,
One person,
listen,
one thought here.
no, I think that's good. I just didn't want the ARB person to come here and sit.
they're not gonna come
like
here
she
and
did
sit.
last time, because.
No, they're gonna, she was an applicant, the ARB was an applicant. This is just comment, so you're gonna get a memo.
Right, okay.
So they're not gonna
Like
come.
this,
They,
okay.
they meet next week.
They meet on the 24th, which
And when we
means
meet on the first,
you'll have ARB comments for Monday, May 1st.
right?
So you have two special exceptions on May 1st. And I keep adding your workshop because I know you're anxious to plow through it. It's up to you.
That'll be public comment and then we're not following that.
And we should have something from ARB and I'll see if Jeff wants to take a quick peek.
Yeah, do the following, the second
Yeah,
meeting in May. Yeah. There's still a lot ahead.
Following for what?
Public comment.
Public comment. Is that what, that's?
Oh, okay, so May 15th. would
Yeah,
be-
public
Yeah.
comment.
Okay. If there's any comment before, would you take it? If it was written,
Take in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
written, so
Why not?
written comment
Yeah, sure.
for the first.
We would
May
encourage
1.
that.
Okay.
The more we have, the better.
I just think you're better off before you get to a public hearing, you're getting as much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Input in advance.
All over again. We don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should have something for May 1st from ARB. And I'll see if Jeff can get something together. If anyone in the public wants to submit written comment for the workshop, that's fine for May 1st and then the 15th. Most likely open for public comment.
Okay, I don't have that updated version, I only have the May,
It was in
March
your
23rd.
email.
I know, I didn't, either I didn't see it or.
Give your
it's
packet.
gone.
They probably got.
It wasn't in this one, no.
No, we got them.
All right, it is-
You're gonna update that.
It's all good, it doesn't matter either, but so. All right. All right. What else? Committee.
Staff report.
So we talked about, I was talking to Bob potentially about fixing a few other regulations. If we get to drive-throughs, one thing we should probably discuss once is shopping centers. We had an issue with shopping center. Which we might be able to sneak into this, or, you know, as another addendum to it. I don't know if we need to get into it, but noise off the lot, like we discussed tonight. It's the same thing pretty much that we have for no lights shall trespass off the lot. So when you get into a beach community and you have an elevated house that's flood compliant and you put a light on for the stairs, it's nearly impossible. Just like it's nearly impossible to have zero noise go off of the lot.
Well, with the cutoff stuff, it's supposed to be possible.
But when your house is way higher than the other ones, you can cut it off, so you have someone here. I'm just,
You can see the lights in Staples lot from Main Street.
but I mean, maybe we focus on,
The light is easier than the noise.
Yeah, definitely.
but I think the noise, it was a good point. I mean, if you read it to the letter of the regulation,
We have regulations regarding.
Music
light
on
trespass.
agreements
We already have them.
in jeopardy.
We never want to get into regulating the lumens at the property line because it's impossible. But you do your best to make people be considerate of their neighbors. somebody on Beaver Dam finally turned off their Christmas light that was casting shadows in my bathroom. Like
Really?
a quarter of a mile away.
All right, so shopping center, I was thinking, noise, maybe just kind of loosen it up a little bit so that we can have music in town. The other one, accessory apartment.
The age group was against it, and he's young, so,
Doesn't
you
he
know,
look here?
I'm listening.
Listen,
So the accessory apartment detached. We have it so that the main house has to be in front
mhm.
or equal to, but we have situations where you have an existing house that's smaller. Like I had someone come in on Bochum Road, that they could have put a larger house in the back, kept the smaller one in the front, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, do we really care? If you have a smaller house up to the front and the bigger house in the back, especially on the big lots. So then I'm gonna send somebody,
Thought of that.
but then I gotta send somebody for a variance where you have the least intrusive looking house in the front.
So the existing least intrusive house would become the ADU, limited to 30% of the square footage of the newer, bigger building.
Right.
Which is in the back, so it just kind of, I looked at it, we're all talking about the main house in the front of, but I don't think it really matters.
I kind of don't either.
There's always.
Why do you do that?
Huh?
Why do
Because
you
we
do that?
thought it made sense at
The time. But then I looked at it and I said, well, you have the smaller, less intrusive house in the front. And the bigger one's going in the back.
I agree.
I think that's a self-inflicted hardship.
Yeah. Both roads.
Well, I'm saying across town, I guess, does it really matter? And the more I looked at it, I'm like, it really doesn't make sense because the smaller, less intrusive is going towards the street.
But then we'd start the process all over again, somebody could go for variance.
But why do we want to do, I guess,
Right, we don't, I don't think we do. I don't, I'm not seeing what the problem would be with a bigger structure in the back.
Me either.
That's it.
I don't like the lot sizes, but.
Unique situation.
Somebody
You
behind
can't
it.
anticipate everything.
but you could put a giant garage in the back. You know, it's,
So you're saying you could say you were gonna tear down the existing house, build a new house in the back, then replace the existing house as an accessory dwelling unit, and it would be allowed there?
no, that's not what I'm
No.
saying.
Huh?
No, he's not saying.
No,
There's,
No, what I'm saying is how to get to the final situation where we prefer the ADU, the smaller, to be behind the bigger,
right,
looking at it from the street.
but I guess why?
yeah, why?
Why?
Why? In order to prevent people from putting ADUs in the front yard.
But if an ADU is a 2,000 square foot house. And you have a 6,000 square foot house in the back on a huge lot that you can't see, who cares? I don't know, I mean, that's kind of the way that I look at
Both
it,
sides.
especially in a wooded.
I think it's a unique situation that we could not really foresee with making regulations that would.
I don't think it's that unique. There's another one in town, there's two houses on the lot, there are a house on a lot that's existing. In a giant garage in the back, and they want to make the giant garage into an ADU without tearing it down and keep the smaller house in the front.
I agree.
I don't,
What's wrong with that?
it's not allowed.
Right now, it's not-
I know, but when,
I don't know, it just kind of, it's starting to come up as we make a regulation and write it, and then we go, oh. We thought it was a good idea for this reason, but
Probably what Bob said, you didn't want people building in the front yard.
but but now, I don't know, that was what we were thinking at the time. The big house in the front and the little house in the back, but you could have a little house or a decent sized house in a garage or however, I don't know. It made me scratch my head, so that's why I'm bringing it. I'm like, does it matter? I don't know.
The intent, I can't come up with another reason for the design of ADUs behind the bigger house. other than to discourage, if not prevent, ADUs from creeping closer to the street from the main house. And that could be attached, sticking closer to the street,
I'm talking about detached.
or
I'm talking
detached.
about detached.
Well, what,
So
how do
say-
you get there? We still have a 20-foot minimum separation between buildings. And so if you have the main house would be some, let's say 50 feet from the road. And behind the house is ledge or something that ADU wouldn't fit back there. Then they're gonna build an ADU between the main house and the road. 20 feet building separation and a front yard setback of 15 feet gives you, 30 some odd feet to play with. To have a little house between the main house and the road.
I'm thinking of existing buildings and retrofitting. Or what if you had a smaller house in the front where everybody had a garage in the back? Would you put the 4-car garage in the front? I mean, it's very, I don't think people are gonna go
So
through
write a
and,
new regulation, say where the
okay,
existing residence,
it's not the end of the world, like I said.
existing dwelling on the lot is within some,
I'll figure it.
yeah, so within some feet of the street. It can't be how deep is a lot?
It still has to be well, anyway,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me, I'm just explaining. I give, the other one was we had an issue with one of our non-conformity sections that it conflicts with a newly passed statute, so that one we have to fix. Do you have anything else you think we need to fix? All right, that makes that easy.
That's just.
No.
So the other thing is, I just wanted to publicly say that Joanne has been awesome because she's done all of our transcripts and listened to these hearings over again with people with mouth and muffled mouth and
I know,
not
isn't it
going
hard?
through. So I just want to thank Joanne because she's
done
She's
an
done-
awesome job.
great and she's going through the pain of not only going to the hearing the first time, but hearing it again in certain circumstances. So thank you, Joanne. In your packets, you did get revised zoning maps.
Thank you.
Hopefully by August 1st. And if I said this to you, just they already told me. My plan is, you're gonna have a new zoning layer. The new parcel layer, this is map geo. So map geo, most of the maps on there are 5 years old. The assessor's office just went through. We got them to update 5 years of map layers that went up last year. We're doing the most recent layer. We're gonna add trails. We're gonna add all our outfalls. We're gonna add sidewalks as they're built, not just what's on the sidewalk plan. The open space map is also getting updated. That's also gonna go live. I've asked them, but they don't have it yet. They're gonna put a new aerial photo layer on. It's still in time, just so that's how so that'll go up when Deep flies that over, and I'm sure I forgot something, so hopefully we're gonna have we've been working on getting new information to upgrade map geo and our in-house maps. What else? Bob and I met as a follow-up meeting with Maria DeMarco. We had talked about having an affordable housing audit. So it's the town's responsibility for all these affordable housing units that we approve to make sure they're actually following the rental laws going with them. So we're gonna do a random audit. We had discussed it a while ago. Hopefully in the next few months, we'll get that together so that actually DeMarco management will go to a landlord and say, I'd like to see your rental agreement. I want to see how you're marketing it. I want to see what happens when a unit's sold or it transfers. So it'll be interesting. And since it's the town's responsibility to make sure the units remain affordable, we've had units for 5-10 years now, almost for some of them. It seems like just a good thing for some housekeeping.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a referral from the planning commission. They're trying to wrap up the plan of conversation. Conservation, sorry, I'm getting tired. Too much conversation. Conservation and development. So to give everyone some time, they're just gonna start with the meat, there's the sections, not worry with the title page in that because everybody's pretty busy. And their goal or our goal is to get it adopted by August 1st. If we get it adopted by August 1st, we can apply that towards our Sustainable Connecticut renewal. If not, then we can't. Sustainable Connecticut, that's up for renewal. That's another one for August 1st. So we've just got a busy summer of wrapping things up. And then we have more things on the plate. Planning Commission, their budget was approved. They have to start the natural hazard mitigation plan. It's a 5-year update. And it's just funny, some of these 5-year plans, it's like, oh, we just adopted it. The next thing you know, 2025, you know, by the time you really dig into it. So we'll be starting that. And I think we'll get, at some point, we're gonna get busy with development applications, I'm assuming, but we have a lot going on. So those are just a few quick highlights. The other thing is I did tell you, we got the town of Westbrook, Clinton, Saybrook, and Fenwick. We got a multi-town grant.
Resiliency, right?
It's $150,000 towards doing a coastal resiliency study beyond the borders of the town. And then Old Saybrook with Westbrook is now going to go for the second round, which I think is an interesting one to look at, from Chapman Beach, Cold Spring Brook in Westbrook, through Chalker Beach, including the tide gate. And then somehow we talked about flooding roads, so we expanded it to Indian Town to try to do a very technological study, especially of the tide gate areas in Marsh Basin. So we're applying for that grant. I applied and received a grant from Sea Grant for grant writer, which we had to amend the grant because it became more complicated. And then we did get that money as well. And then our grant writer suggested we go for another grant to get another grant writer. So now we have 2 people helping us with the grant, and the study, I suspect, is going to be over 200,000.
Wow.
Just to figure out,
Nice.
but it would be nice to have some of the answers as to why things are happening. And the whole point of the larger study was to kind of look at and see, well, why are you losing beach? Why is your seawall collapsing? So we really don't have anything, especially Cold Spring Brook and the Chalker Beach area. The only thing we have was from the 2020 Home Depot application. Oh, and Summerwood as well. But when Irene and Sandy came, there was so much sand deposited, the study's obsolete because it just changed everything. So I'm sure there's something else, but I figured I've chewed your off enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to mention the wall thing that we had emails about? No.
You confused me with the wall a little bit. We need to talk about the wall, but you didn't confuse me. I kind of got overwhelmed because I overthought what was going on with the wall. But that's something we can add to, but we don't have to fix it all now.
Oh, the other thing was about clarification of the meaning of a deck or platform above the first story.
That's on this. You don't have to get too much of this stuff, Jenna. All right, I'll put some other fixes together and we can go through them again when it's not 9 o'clock at night.
Jerry?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.